And we're back. Welcome to Print Your Games, podcast about what's new and awesome in 3D printing for gaming. I'm one of your hosts, Jeffrey J. Thacker, also known as Perram, and I'm joined by.
Kristen Sowards, also known as Seventh Mastery.
Oh, Kristen,
Mhm.
there are some times when I get bit by the project bug. Like the little ADHD brain just
Mhm.
latches on to the potential, like all the potential possibilities of wonderment that a new project has in my brain.
Big
And
same.
then I go down the research rabbit hole, the hobby research rabbit hole.
Oh, if only I researched first.
Oh boy.
I just pull up
And
both of my passion pistols and we go. Boom.
oh no, right. And I have just like been just spiraling down that rabbit hole this last week, and it's partially your fault. And
Oh,
and I only blame people for wonderful things, so don't ever worry about that.
no, I'm
But
fine
like
with
when you
it.
brought up that
Mhm.
terrain shout out last week on the
Mhm.
show, I was just
Yes,
like, "Ooh, those look really good.
they
Uh,
do.
they would look really good in this project. I would love to do this." And then, holy crap! Look at all these terrain videos I'm watching.
Mhm.
Um, and that's kind of where it went. So a few things triggered this, a few
Mhm.
wonderful, wonderful things. So first thing that triggered this was I was working on the Worlds Beyond Frontier project for OPR
Mhm. Mhm.
and working with Titan Forge to get some photos taken of the minis for the project. We had all these hand painted minis, had them all professionally painted, flown out to Poland. Like lots of fun stuff was happening
Flown out to
there.
Poland.
Yeah.
Your miniatures are better traveled than I am.
And well, like we had this whole big thing. I don't know if you've seen the advertisement for this thing, but we kind
I
of went a
finally did. I
little
finally got the
bit
email.
extra.
It took a while. I was really surprised it took as long as it did, but it got there. It happened.
Right.
I was like,
Yeah.
there it is. We
Yeah.
see it. It's real.
It's we kind of went a little bit extra on this project for some
Mhm.
reason. And I was looking at those photos and I was comparing them to the same photos I took for Secrets of Tishel here in my studio. And I noticed there was a big difference. Like I'm real proud of the Tishel photos. They all look good. And I really like the game room I'm able to provide here. But there's always been that one step above what I've been able to provide, that one bit of flex in RPGs and miniature gaming that I've never been able to hit, but have
Mhm.
always drooled over since I was a tiny little 10-year-old, like flipping through a Citadel
Mhm.
magazine.
What's that?
And that is those amazing looking handcrafted terrain boards that they play the games on, whether it's like the Warhammer massive diorama boards that you see like all the battle reports and White Dwarf played on, or it's like those D&D dungeons that they carve into like 3-inch XDF that they used to bring to conventions sunken
Mhm.
down into a table.
Oh
um
yeah,
like
I've built some of that.
that like photorealistic y, it looks like um what train hobbyists that were addicted to Beowulf would produce, kind
That's a
of
mood.
build outs. And like I've known this is possible. I've known this is possible in a lot of ways. But like those boards are not cheap. They don't have to be super expensive if you're willing to do a ton of work. And those boards are big and
Mhm.
heavy because like you're
Mhm.
talking about like building actual like landscaping and sculpted terrain features and or digging. I mean, like ultimately like Dwarven Forge is like the commodification of this,
Right, right.
but you can like
But
handcraft this stuff too.
yeah, back a while ago. I won't give a
Mhm.
date. I worked at a store that was a comic book store, and we sold sci-fi, and we had a huge gaming section, a huge 40K section, all that
Mhm.
stuff. But down in the basement, in a
Mhm.
very likely hideously unsafe ventilation environment, we had a secret terrain factory.
Oh.
And there was a whole brand of terrain that was mostly foam core.
Mhm.
It was very early hot wire crafting, like
Mm.
handmade hot wire cutters,
Mhm.
pre-Proxon, like, or maybe Proxon existed, but it certainly wasn't being used by most game hobbyists.
You mean like some
Um,
gauge wire and a freaking plug in the wall?
yeah, and like electrocuting yourself and like every horrible thing. Don't be me, people. Anyway, and there was this guy named Gordon who did all the stuff. I probably shouldn't have said his actual name, but anyway, that's all he did was like lurk in the terrain factory in the basement and like made terrain all day. And it was incredible stuff. It was always based off of a 3 foot by 3 foot unit, right? And I think we had chipboard bases, but they were set up to be, modular in these big, massive things. And because they had that, I want to say it was about 3 or 4 inch. I think it was 4 inch foam core. They could stack,
Hmm.
and so storing them, it was a chore, but it was a 3 foot stack. So you basically had a 3 foot by 3 foot cube, and it was your
Yeah.
playboard. And that sounds bad, but it was way more portable. And I even found, I want to say we found like a catering bag or something that the whole thing would just slide into for like $14.
Hmm.
And because it was styrofoam,
It weighs nothing.
weighed nothing. And so you could carry
Mhm.
your 3 by 3 cube in one trip and then take your minis or whatever in the second trip and be pretty good to go.
Nice.
So,
So,
anywho,
so yeah, they look good, but they take up space.
hmm
And um, there's a really awesome video that actually is a sponsored video that Matt from Mini Wargaming pointed me at.
hmm
That they filmed,
hmm
where they're going over one of the companies I looked into for today's episode, but they show off how they make their boards and how they store their boards. And it's like these 2 foot by 4 foot sections
hmm,
that are
okay,
like got these big, thick plywood bases, and then they have these big, heavy duty latches to latch them together. And they're stored like sideways on a racking system. It's like really super cool looking and really awesome way to do it. And then there's like Geek Gaming Phoenix's videos, who has unfortunately left the YouTube hobby. Um, but his videos are still like absolutely worth watching, where it's like gigantic boards that he builds professionally for game stores
hmm
and all that jazz. And they're these massive things. And like I've seen solutions where you hang them on the wall, and solutions where they subdivide into the cubes, like you were talking about, and you can store the cubes or anything there. But also, it's still just like was always just out of reach, because as cool as it is having my own dedicated game space here, space at a premium. So
hmm
what I'm doing right now, the same things I imagine 90% of other hobbyists are doing.
what's
I
that?
have mats. I have neoprene mats for various choices where I put 3D terrain on top of it. I have, of course, for like Pathfinder and D&D, I have so many like foldable terrain maps that I can pull out and play on. I've got lots of scattered terrain to throw on those to make those 3D in a hurry.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, like lots of cool options. There's the dungeon tile options. There's all these other options. Um, but it's not the only options out there. There have been solutions created that I didn't know could work. So the problem is, if you look at a neoprene mat with
hmm
terrain on it, it looks great. It's fun to play with, it's super practical. No
hmm
shame in this. I have like a dozen of these maps right now and lots of terrain to slap on it. You get a really good looking game table. But
Yeah,
when
I've
you're
got.
sitting down there and taking photographs, it doesn't look good in the
It doesn't look that
photos.
good. That's for sure, for sure. Like I have an Arctic one, a forest
Mhm.
one. I want to say it's like a weird kind of like apocalypse temple one, and then I have, of course, like piezo flip mats for miles.
Mhm.
If we just want like color underneath, say like we use a lot of the plexiglass stuff. Just slap that down and pile on it, which is kind of weird because it makes your terrain float on this little
Yeah,
and like you would think that wouldn't, but it bothers me anyway.
it bothers me too.
So we a while back, the first thing that I did like this, and I'm curious what you're gonna talk about, was hybrided some 3D printed trees with some foam core snow mounds and put them on that Arctic neoprene. And I got a pretty good look there. I
Yeah,
was pretty
looks
happy
nice.
with that. But I'm curious what you're going to bring to this, because right now I am planning a project. Obviously, I've been talking about kind of doing this game store walkabout this summer, but I'm also going to be ending up and doing a in-person D&D game for the first time. For the group will be at that point about 8 months old,
Mhm.
for a game that's never been. These people have never met physically, except for like a couple of us already know each other like a little. but like it'll be the first time that the actual gaming group that we've been playing with will be physically playing D&D. And I'm like, this will be either amazing or disastrous, and I have no idea because these personalities are big personalities because we can run an exciting game online and keep everybody's engagement up almost every time we play. But I'm like, what's going to happen when all that's like around a single gaming table? I don't know. It's either going to be epic or terrifying. We'll find out.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
But I want to have a whole new board for that.
Mm.
So I am here for what you're bringing. Please.
Okay. So there's been a few YouTube channels that fell down this rabbit hole that have pointed out some alternative options. First is Jeremy from Black Magic Craft has been doing some fun experiments. There's another one I forget the name of, and then there is Miniature
Like
Realms. No,
okay.
it's not Wylock. Wylock does some really great stuff too.
Wylock
But
does
Wylock is like very into jank level terrain that looks awesome.
Yeah, I mean, like dollar
which is
score
great.
farm board and
It's
stuff.
wonderful.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah. I love Wylock stuff. Absolutely love Wylock's channel. If you haven't watched his channel, go check it out.
Please do. Yeah. Actually, all these channels we mentioned so far are fantastic.
Yeah. So Miniature Realms is like a very old school, old hammery person that's like excited about the old world and like trying to build stuff that looks like it's back in 1997 and stuff. But one of the techniques he showed off.
You hurt me so bad. I was running Warhammer tournaments in 1987.
Then you know what the terrain looks like.
I did because we sold some in our secret basement.
But the basic is like you can make your own gaming mats that aren't neoprene, but will still roll up nicely, but have realistic game board textures on them. And the way you do this is there's a couple of different methods that work really well for this. You can either get what's called a drop cloth mat, where you make a silicone drop cloth mat. And so you buy a piece of drop cloth, you cover it with silicone caulking, and then you texture the crap out of it, and then you bring in your 3D printed so that's the thing that like brought this around to me, because some of this is like really old stuff. But I've been watching a lot of videos, and Salute happened in UK, and if you don't know what Salute is, it is like Adepticon is where you go to talk about miniatures and play miniature war games. Gen Con's where you go at in the world to play RPGs.
RPGs and board games, I would also probably give it to.
If you want to play just board games, go to Spiel.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. But again, not something I have had to see with my own eyes yet. So go on.
But if you want to see a bunch of grizzled old nerd clubs with nothing but free time, spare money, and all the artistry in the world put together amazing game boards to show off and compete with each other, that's Salute. Like it is just a place where a bunch of wargaming clubs flex on each other with the best looking game boards they can make. And it is like, if you can see like some of the World Games Illustrated videos, they go every year, and they release like 5 video series where they just like go to the best boards and talk to the people, and they talk about, yeah, we made this and this, and we commissioned this terrain company to make this one-off building we needed for this specific board that we're only going to show once. And like lots of that stuff. Like I handcrafted this out of clay and stuff, and this is like from an old kit from the 30s, and like all the cool stuff they do with these is awesome. But lately it's been a ton of 3D printed stuff is showing up on these boards, because it's the answer for unique customized prints and stuff for exactly like this.
Do you have you seen any specific boards that impressed you?
Yes, but I don't have those ready to
That's
go.
okay. I was just curious if you'd seen them, and you know, I, of course, this is my sin as someone who talks about gaming a lot and does social media a lot, has my TikTok stuff and does all this stuff, is that whenever I go and I'm really impressed, totally forget to bust out my phone. I've got a fantastic camera right in my pocket. Nope. Yeah. I'm just like, ooh, it's shiny, and suddenly the next thing you know, I'm sitting in the hotel room going, dang it, I didn't take a picture of that. So I have lived this pain. Anyway, go on. This is so you said that you're putting the silicone and like putting details on it.
Okay, so you put down the drop. So there's two methods that have been really attracting me that
Okay.
seem to work really great. One is you make what is called silicone mat. You get a drop cloth, which is the kind of cloth you put down on your floor when you're about to paint your walls,
Yep.
and then you get a whole bunch of silicone caulking tubes.
Okay.
It has to be silicone.
Okay.
Okay. Be careful when you're buying it because it's real easy to get silicone-like, which is
Mm-hmm.
not silicone.
Got it.
And then you put down the silicone as a layer on top of the drop cloth,
Mm-hmm.
and you cut it to the right size of whatever mat you want to make.
Right.
And then you add texture to the silicone, and then you can flock and like treat the silicone like it would be an actual board that you're building.
Right.
And the cool thing is like you can use texture rollers. If you dip them in soapy water before you use them, they'll like work wonderful on this stuff. And like so you can take I had a like custom miniature maker. I brought them up on the show before. They make all these really cool texture rollers. You can get those texture rollers and then like roll out your streets and paths onto the silicone like it's clay, and then like texture up the sides with a sponge, and then like sprinkle the freaking crap out of sand all over this thing, and then on top of the sand you flock it with grass like you're building a terrain board on foam core. But at the end of the day, you spray the crap out of it with sealant. Like you absolutely soak this stuff in matte sealant.
Basically shellacking it.
Like, yeah. And then you can just roll it up like a post, like a neoprene mat. It flex because it's made out of silicone rubber. It flexes. It doesn't crack.
Really?
Yeah.
It feels like such a dangerous proposition. I want to see it.
That's the whole point of this. I will throw you links later, but yeah, that's the whole point of this.
It makes me so uncomfortable.
Is you can just roll it up and then put it in the corner or put it in a bag, and like it's a much thicker than the neoprene ones. You don't roll them that tight. You get a big tube about like a cantaloupe round.
Yeah.
And then you can just store that and then slap it out on your board when you need it, and it doesn't crack. It stays normal.
Right.
And then what you do is you just texture it and flock it like you would any normal terrain, and it's going to look good as heck. And here's the kicker: you make the add-on terrain features. So unless you want just a flat board, you're going to want some like hills or rocks or stuff. You paint it at the same time with the same paint you want to use on that board, and you do it at the bases. You flock them the same so that they blend together seamlessly, and you slap it down. And you get this board that looks like it's a custom-made, handcrafted, big old thick, heavy board that you see in game stores. But actually, you can put all the terrain in a tote and roll it up, and then put it in your corner, and you can have like 10 of these in your game room.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Just a brief step aside, we do have James, we have Blasted Camouflage with a bunch of comments about alien terrain. We have Martian Play also, and the reminder that we actually do this live on YouTube while we're recording. So.
Yep. Hey y'all, everybody. Yeah, if anybody has like favorite terrain companies or terrain links, like go ahead and throw those up. We absolutely want to see them, and I need all the inspiration I can get. There's like 3 companies that I've fallen down the rabbit hole that like support this style of board.
Right.
But before I jump into those, there's another method, and this is the one that I have a video linked to 2 different videos, because he built this board twice, boards like this twice, from Miniature Realms, who does the old hammer kind of stuff. Lots of 3D printed stuff. Imagine primarily interested in 3D printing companies because of the nature of the show. But if you just got a really cool terrain company, I'm not going to complain about seeing them. Like I love all things gaming. But Miniature Realm, what he does is the same kind of style, but instead of using a silicone, he does use some silicone. But what he does is he starts by going and getting a Woodland Scenics grass mat of whatever shade he wants as his base. But if you've ever seen one of these Woodland Scenic grass mats, they are flat. Like these used to be used all the time in Old Hammer. But you get like
train modeling too, right?
Yeah. But my frame of reference isn't train modeling.
I know. Old Hammer. Let's just say Old Hammer. Go on.
No, train modeling's good. But indeed, that's who they mostly market this stuff for. But it's like this flat one-tone grass, and so it looks fine, and it's a very quick way. It used to be the only way you got a board going, up until like specialty products have come out. Uh, oh, that reminds me. In my freaking closet, I have found one of the old 1996 Citadel grass mats.
Hmm.
It might be sacrificed for this.
Hmm.
Okay, maybe not. That wasn't that.
Well, how good condition is it?
It's mint in box.
So I don't know. There's probably people who buy that off of you for a lot of budget for other projects. I'm just saying, like, I don't know.
I have a set of the old Citadel woods too, and that Chaos Tower that was all in the stack in my corner
Still in
when
the
I used to run a
boxes?
game store. Yeah, still in box, never been opened.
Perram,
Uh
eBay now.
huh.
I'm sorry, but like, I don't know. Make it, sacrifice it to eBay. Bang, yeah. Thank you,
Oh,
David. David, thank you.
really?
I
Oh,
mean,
but,
I mean,
but could cut up and turn into bits.
yeah. Or could sell on eBay and buy 5 times materials to make even cooler board. Just
All right,
saying.
all right. So
People
you get
do. Yeah, go ahead.
so that makes sense. But Woodland Scenics,
Hmm.
you can buy one of those mats for like 40 USD. That is like 8 foot by 8 foot. Um, so like all the terrain you need to make 2 freaking boards out of this stuff. And what you do there is you just treat that as the base layer, as if you've already put the base flock down, and then you paint over top of it with airbrush or spray cans to put like tonal texture on it, and then you reflock in patches. You put some silicone based, you either put silicone down, you need to put a flexible, basically because you're going to roll this up, you need a flexible clay material. So there are
Hmm.
certain epoxy clays you can use for this, or you can use the silicone caulking again and then just like mush it down. And like you
Right.
can also mix this stuff with paint before you put it down, so it's already pre-toned before you start putting it down, so it doesn't look like you just put a big white blip over your
Yeah.
freshly nice thing.
Hmm.
And then you paint over it and you flock it, and you just basically do everything I just said before, but you basically start with a much thinner material that's already got one base tone down that you're
Hmm.
augmenting. And then you roll it on up, and after you've textured it and done all that stuff, and it rolls up even tighter. Like you can actually get neoprene tube roll. But again, it rolls up, and because you used all flexible material intending to roll this up,
Hmm.
you're good. And then it still looks amazing once you do all that work to it, um, which is the same amount of work you would have to do if you were just having 3 sheets of XPS foam bound up in
Right.
plywood.
Right. Right. People are throwing out some names for us for stuff. People that support this sort of stuff. We have Thunderhead Studios, maybe from David,
Mhm.
and then Multiverse. I'm not sure what that is. This is a printer, isn't it? No. Let's see. Do you know
No,
about Multiverse? Prints like, oh, it prints like a dream, from Zivka being the Kickstarter. Oh, okay. So we have a Kickstarter. We need to look into that one.
let's check it
Saucerman
out.
Studios also there. Positive. Sadly, I'm probably only in the
Oh,
mediocre terrain camp. Do you know what? I'm just going to remind you, in our hobby, we have great media, and we
mhm,
have good photographers, and we
mhm,
have dedicated crafters that do this stuff like at an X tier level, right?
mhm,
Those are the people who put their content out there. I assure you, most people, like, Pam and I have talked about this before. Both of us are like,
mhm,
we're just kind of okay. And then I take one of my things to the game store, and like, I don't want the reaction. I'm not taking it there for that, like, whatever. But I've had some very, like, you know, I've had people flock around the table. I'm like, it's not even my best army. Like, what are you doing? you know? And so, like, paint on models is so much, like, you're already past what, 60-70% of our hobby if you have primed and base coated models. Like, do not harsh on your terrain if you have terrain.
mhm,
Have terrain. Like, so many people I know, like, I've gone in, and I don't fault you for this. If this is where you're at with the hobby, great. But I've seen those textured cardboard where you just like do the little zigzag and you do the next one, like, and a lot of people then, like, Mod Podge it or do whatever and make it look really
mhm.
rad. But I've seen people just leave the textured, almost looks like a, what you call the maps that are that way. My brain's not good. uh where you have just the elevation heights, and it's just kind of like a built up layered thing. And I'm blanking on the name. Topographical, maybe? Is that it?
Topographical.
Yeah, topographical maps. And so but then weirdly, if you're consistent with it and your entire board is topographical brown cardboard, guess what? It starts
It
to
looks
look cool
great.
again. Yeah, yeah. And I'm like, so don't say mediocre. I bet you
Mm,
there are people who see your board and Glass Half Edge are still like, dang, you know what I mean? I bet. I will bet you a fiver.
mhm.
Mm. Anyway,
Where was we?
we were talking about the second option, and it rolls up better.
Okay.
That you're using that woodland scenic space with
Yeah,
you said,
yeah.
and you put down the caulking underneath it. Is that what you're doing? Like laying out
Well, no,
plastic?
you basically just treat that as your base layer for the mat, and then
Mm-hmm.
you throw paint on it from a spray can or an airbrush to like put a bunch of different tonal changes, so like different browns and darker greens and stuff. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like goblin green to start with. It's real bright. Well, the
Right.
default one is, but you can get them in a bunch of different shades actually.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just like pop out your airbrush or your rattle cans, and then just start putting tones down on it to like divvy up the tones, and then you get like your own flocking, and you put like a bunch of glue down on it, and you like flock it in patches to like divvy up the texture, and like add a bunch of different.
Sprinkle the little leaves,
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then
little
like you
leaves.
decide where your paths are going to be, and then like on the paths you like pat down a bunch of silicone or a bunch of like I forget which clay it is that you can just put down that'll flex and
Mm-hmm.
bend instead of crack.
Right.
And then on that you paint that to match, and then you flock that, and you put like your texture rollers over across of that to get like your cobblestone roads on the
Mm-hmm.
map. And
Mm-hmm.
then once you've done all that work, which is, really nice at this point, you
Right.
can then you can then just roll it up or fold it up and just toss it in the corner when you're not done with it. But the key here is at the same time you do that, you get a bunch of mountains and stuff, and you paint it and flock it to match the boards. And on the boards you put like little dark patches where you intend to put like terrain features so that it looks like it all effortlessly blends together. And by doing those stage 1 and then stage 2, you get this board that looks like a complete handcrafted foam cut masterpiece, but you can throw in the trunk of your Honda Civic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or you
And
can get a
3D
car that has
printing,
a larger hatchback and just put your
yeah, let's not do that. But like, and since you've in the world of 3D printing, there's so many options for this. So like, I used to giggle a little bit about 3D printing hills and stuff, but
Mhm.
you can get so much more texture out of the base layer just by default, and there's so many wonderful hills out there that you can download and 3D print, and then you just paint and then you paint and flock it as if you crafted this out of foam, but you're already starting at a much more detailed base layer, and it just looks amazing. I've seen so many of these done on pictures and videos. Like, no, that makes absolute sense. And as long as you flock it, texture, and paint it to match the mat you just did,
It'll
then
look
when you
great.
slap it down on your map, it just looks like one giant piece of bespoke terrain that is just perfect together. Anyway, I'm kind of going off on a tangent there, but
No,
there's
it's
a
all right.
few 3D creators that
Mhm.
specialize in supporting this style of crafting, this traditional crafting augmented by 3D printing, and they come in like a couple of different varieties. The one that is like straight up my favorite so
Mhm.
far
Mhm.
is Gamescapes 3D,
Gamescapes
who
3D. Okay.
immediately convinced me to join their tribe
Mm.
just after falling into it because they solved two of my long-term problems.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, so Gamescapes 3D, let me throw them up here. They need to work on their marketing. But what they do is they specialize in like hills and terrains and mountains and
I like those
roadways and
ruins.
piles and ruins and just like gribblies for like handcraft. Like if you were to do your own like foam houses or
Yeah,
cardboard
yeah.
houses,
There's a
they have
little
like boarded over windows and doorways and tavern signs and stuff that you can just glue to the side of it to get it to be awesome looking.
and folks, I can't tell you how much easier this is because it's very easy to just do line work and do your textured brick look on your foam, cut a hole for the window, and then just slap that
Mhm,
3D printed frame on there.
mhm,
You will love how much time you just saved, and it'll look remarkable.
mhm.
Anyway,
And they do scatter rubble. They do a ton of furniture and cave terrain, like for big giant cave boards. A ton of very stylized, bespoke building sets that are designed to work together with terrain. There's one particular set they've done that solves a problem I've screamed about for ages, and I'm just trying to scroll through here to find it. It's on the next page, and which is here it is, Dungeon Campground. Like, there's lots of people that give you dungeons and caves, but you never get furniture that looks like it belongs in a dungeon and cave. Dungeon Campground set is an entire set of scatter terrain that if you add this to any dungeon tile set you've got to like scatter around and like decorate, it will look a billion times better. We've got like weapon racks of variety, like fortifications made out of tipped over furniture and rocks. You've got like a bunch of ragged bedrolls that an orc could sleep into, tons of like busted open chests and stuff to scatter around. Lots of it looks like what the inside of a dungeon should look like if people are living in there, which is messy and scattered and stuff. If you play any video game or Dark Souls, you'll notice that. And when you play on like a Dungeon 4 or the Dwarven Forge or like a handcrafted dungeon tile set that doesn't have any furniture in it and it just looks weird, or you play a video game where all the hallways are empty and blank and stuff, it feels off. It's because you haven't messed it up enough. And like they make little sets like this to mess things up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and this is how you take that gridded, pretty bland looking board that you made. Like, and I say this having one of these boards, right? And it's like you do the little texture walls or whatever, and I've cut individual bricks on my procs on. I mean, you've seen my little segment walls, and I'm really happy with those. But like, I look at that 3D printed one right on the left there, that's just part of their splash thing, and that looks really good. Just I'm talking on in like the graphic on the left, not even in. But anyway, that would print up probably in one piece. It looks like it's probably resin to me. It could be FDM, but I think that's resin.
It's this set right here.
Okay.
Ruins and Bandit Hideout dual mode terrain.
Yeah, so like you print that up, cutting those individual bricks and building it, it's probably going to be 6s on print time, but one of them I'm sitting there with a prox on and cutting thousands of bricks. And the other one, I have goo slowly rising up out into a beautiful piece of terrain, and I can go watch Naruto.
Absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
Anyway.
And if you had any luck with FDM, which you don't, my friend.
I don't. Well, yeah, we don't even need to get on that subject. It's not my native language.
But with the modern FDM printers, like if you had oh my gosh, I'm blanking on bamboo. If you had like a bamboo or like one of the Neptune 4s or that was in working order, then you can churn through one of these buildings in a couple of days of doing nothing.
You just set it up and go and come back, and there you go. Big cool building.
It'll cost you nothing too, like just a few dollars in filament to get the whole building put together. Like, it is crazy how cheap filament is. Like, resin's become very, very cheap lately too. But like filament's down to like $15, $10 per kilo.
Sounds like you're shopping in my lane there.
I'm just buying the Elegoo stuff, but I'm buying it in bulk.
Yeah. David says, Days, are you taking naps between your prints? No, you start the print when you go to bed, silly. And then it's like the Christmas elves come while you're sleeping every day, and you
wake up to such wonderful spaghetti.
That's what I wake up to. That's not what you wake up to. Yeah, I, of course, hear strange noise in the middle of the night, go in, and I'm like, oh. And then I just take my pile of bright red spaghetti and walk in the other room.
Yeah. And so like he's got lots of buildings, lots of like scatter, lots of hills and cliffs and roads and things that you can like very quickly paint the theme into like this traditional crafted, like this is meant to be painted and put on flocked terrain and that sort of stuff. This also works absolutely perfectly wonderfully if you're using neoprene mats or any other version of terrain that you can just put these things onto. It works fine there. Like, I'm talking about making the mat more detailed and then adding things to it, but like all of this stuff works perfectly well on every version of any sort of terrain mat that you want to put this stuff on. the other thing that I like about this one is they've got their tribe is $5 and their merchant
Dang.
license is $8.
Wait, a merchant license at 8?
At
That's
$8.
wild.
So I went ahead
You
and just
could,
opted for the merchant license straight
yeah.
up so that I can just buy a bunch of this stuff and then just like go to my friendly local game stores that I play at regularly and just give them some terrain sets to keep at the store.
Yeah, when I'm just looking at that, like, I'm sorry, at most cons, if you just had a bunch of that pre-painted, wow, you could make some money.
The lost this lost city set is just amazing.
Wow.
Could you imagine
Uh,
playing on a board like this?
I could totally. Oh wow, that's incredible. I could totally paint that up as like I could match it to my Archon stuff too,
Yeah.
and make it just look
It's
even more big and cool.
yeah. It's like a whole bunch of like elevated layers and stacked pillars and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're playing any sort of D&D game on this or Mordheim or Frostgrave, like all sorts of any sort of skirmish fantasy stuff on
Mm-hmm.
here. There's also a lot of stuff here that would also work really well for 40k. Though this one does the skew fantasy, but there's like a lot of gothic architecture. All you need to do is add some skulls to it, and you're
Some
fine.
skulls and take some Greeblies that like have steam pipes and like terminals.
And look at this modular timber frame set that looks like it's half collapsed
Wow.
on itself. This is like a Mordheim player's dream terrain.
Right. Right.
Like the buildings are sagging in on each other and cracked and ruined, and they release like 3 of these giant terrain sets every single freaking month for $5. Good lord, how do you keep this going? Gamescape's bravo. And then like the price of the individual stuff is like $5 for gigantic freaking keep.
Mm-hmm.
$7 will get you a mushroom house grown into the side of a stalactite that's
pretty
probably
dope.
like a foot and a half tall.
That's really cool.
Yeah, like look at this like freaking dwarf fortress here. Like it's a modular dwarf fortress set, and it's massive and looks awesome. And that's just one of the things that they release. Like this month for May, it's the Queen's Road, a Edwardian castle, and like these lost city ruins that already just look amazing. You could build a wonderful thing out of those ruins. And this like apocalypse, I don't know how to say that word.
Apocalypse buttes,
yeah, which are like show-stopping centerpiece crags that you can just put down on a desert board and look amazing.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah,
and this is just your first one, huh?
It's just my first one, but like
Dang.
This is great. Like imagine this on one of those boards. Like you can see it because that's what he's putting them on. He has his own YouTube channel where he shows off his builds, and it's as nerdy and low budget as you imagine it is. It's so wonderful. Like in his basement, getting all crafty and showing off the 3D printed stuff. All of these have like recessed magnet holes so that you can just all of these parts, the modular parts, will just snap together with magnets and just be instantly playable. Oh, Gamescape, you did wonderful work. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really, and the value is like stupid good. That is stupid good.
Now, slightly more expensive.
Yeah.
Is Custom Miniature Maker, who wants $7 whole for their
set. No, outrage.
And
$7.
They lean heavier into the getting tools for crafting.
Well, they did the text rollers, right? You've talked about before.
And they were like winning marketing, just showing those texture rollers making terrain every video every week, doing it by hand. It's just fantastic. It's like they also have like printable texture palettes, printable wet palettes, like lots of scatter to go in with the stuff, and
infamous
lots of
bullet round dice. I see those.
Like little they did a cave set, and they did these like little spiders on cobwebs that you just meant to press into the clay in corners and stuff where you want them. They've got base cutters. So like all the standard base sizes, they have like a cookie cutter that will stamp those out. So you just like put down some clay, roll the texture you want out, and just like bap out your bases so that your bases can match your terrain board. They've got like the cliffs that I mentioned that you can just print out a bunch of these cliffs and like whatever scale you want, and then block the crap out of them to match your board. They have a couple of things like besides their texture rollers. They've got lots of little gribblies like ladders and bushes and rubble and rocks and all that sort of stuff that you need. They support both sci-fi and fantasy.
Yeah.
Printable pipe segments to put on your board, weird little apocalypse
I have
worms.
those steam pipes, you know. Maybe you get a
Your
little
Happy
Mario
Place
action.
portal
Ooh,
set.
happy place portal set. Wait,
Mhm.
is there a message in the portal? I'm just curious. Is there a message in the portal?
I don't know.
SRU. Does it say like? I don't know. It's almost a message. I'm not. We won't.
Mhm.
We won't dwell.
And there's one thing I wanted to show that they've done is on their next page. Um, that just sort of like embodies like some of the brilliance that they do. Here it is. Like they do a printable tuft they call it the tuft buster, but it's a grass tuft template. So if
Mm-hmm.
you want to make your own grass tufts to go on your bases or terrain, it's just like little ovals that you just like squirt your hot glue in before you put your static grass over it, and you have like a smooth thing on the bottom, like a piece of wax paper or a piece of
Mm-hmm.
foam that it'll peel off of. And then you just pull the template off, and then you get like your own homemade grass tufts that look awesome and are the right sizes and cool looking shapes to put on your terrain or bases or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like they're coming out with like they make tools to do the crafting better, and I love them for
Right,
it.
right. Definitely seems like you're saying, there's the augment from the other one where it's like a little ad or a little building or whatever, but this is much more like for the crafter themselves with those templates and just
Mhm,
kind of like getting in there. Yeah,
mhm.
I like it.
So for my last creator I want to spotlight in this little journey,
Mm-hmm.
it's leaning more towards your first suggestion. Do you remember Citadel used to make, I forget what they called this board, but it was like four big pieces that you slotted together. They were big, gigantic hips blocks that
Yep,
slotted together
yep. Mm-hmm.
in a few different configurations to make a battlefield.
Yeah,
You could
I
like
want
have the hill at the center or two hills on the side or some sort of combination of that.
and
Do
I
you
want to
remember
say
what it
they're.
was called?
Gosh, I don't, and I know that the only thing that I've really seen it for since then is
Mhm.
one of the Underworld
Right.
has like a little has a really like deluxe version of like their maps that's like that a little bit.
David
Where
Wickham
this
says it's the realm of battle.
realm of yes, because we talked about this and it was like it was kind of actually difficult to track it down.
It really is. And they were like $300 when they were new. Good Lord knows what it's like to get one today. Uh,
eBay. If you have one hiding in your closet, Perram, sell it.
I don't have one of these in my closet.
All right, all
I
right.
wish I did. I'd have it painted by now.
Or sold.
Sorry. I mean, I kind of don't do the eBay sell it thing like I
I
know I
know.
should.
You don't know the level of hypocrisy happening here right now. People are like, wait, are you the guy who has like, the clearance pile of, pirates, what's it called? The sea pirate game. Oh, oh, you know what? I don't want to say it because it's the one I'm thinking of is a little problematic. I think it's name, but there's a pirate game that has like various themed pirate factions. We'll just say that maybe could have been better thought through. But anyway, they're pretty.
So yeah, I found a picture of it. The realm
You
of
found it.
battle.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow, I do
Mhm.
remember that. And ironically, I look at it now and think, oh, could do better,
So
much
it's just
better.
6 2x2
Yeah.
boards that just slot together.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
you could do this. Like it'd be very trivial to do this. You can go down to Home Depot today and get
Yep.
two by
F-
two
FPS
uh
and
XPS
or XPS.
bundles.
Sorry, that's FPS. Jeez, I'm so tired. XPS and like definitely hammer that out. I could hammer that board out in an afternoon, easy.
Mhm. So there's a company called Terrainify that
Hmm.
have been like, what if we just did that as 3D printable?
Hmm.
Mhm.
Okay.
And so they did a Kickstarter. It's over, but you can go buy the files. The downside is this is very expensive for to
Oh.
get the whole all in. Though they
Hmm.
do sell smaller sets that you can build a board with, but it's called like the Rugged Hills,
Hmm.
and it looks kind of awesome. And
I
here it
like the
is.
rugged hills.
Mhm. So there's the Ragged Hills, and
Hmm.
it's just that they did, but because it's meant to be 3D printable on FDM printers, it's 8 by 8 squares that just has like a billion variations to get these same like little realistic hill terrain that you can just print out and then stick together, glue them into the chunks you want, or just leave them all modular, and then put your flocking and paint and stuff on top of that when you're done, and
Hmm.
you get like some really amazing looking boards. I will say if you don't hide the seams very well, I think it's distracting at this size. So do an effort to hide the seams as best you can if you do one of these. But it still looks amazing. And again, with one of these, this would just collapse into a tote box when you're done with it.
Right,
And
right, right.
and again, people, matte sealant like crazy. You can make this as durable as concrete if you put enough of it on there.
Hmm. Well, with that being printed base is probably right. Like it's not going to be well. It's going to be pretty resilient. Although the left looks like resin a little bit.
They
Curious.
also did an older set that you can get for like very cheap, for like $50 for the all in, which it was like a ruined city kind of texture.
Hmm.
So it's like cobblestone and like brickwork and stuff just all collapsed. So if you wanted like that sort of look for your terrain board, and then of course if you get both sets, they have the tiles to blend the two together at the seams,
Hmm.
and it just like looks fantastic. So if you didn't want to do the neoprene way, you could 3D print this stuff and make that your base layer, and then do all the other stuff I talked about to just make it look amazing when you're done. It's just like, so with basically, I think the thing is, now that we have 3D printing, a lot of the very expensive parts of doing these boards are available to us for next to nothing. And also, we can make our boards much more unique because we're not reliant on the same 3 or 4 creators that whoever's currently producing terrain that we can adapt. Like, I love Battlefield in the Box, but do you know how many
Yeah.
Battlefield in the Box hills? I see it and recognize it by sight the
Right.
second I
Right.
walk by a game store and they've got one out. It looks glorious, but I've
Hmm.
seen that same 3 hills
Right. Right.
so many times.
Yeah. Well, it's like I have
Mhm.
was it Dungeon Crate and a couple others that like they're really
Mhm.
neat, but the second you start using them regularly, it's like, oh look, it's the portal again from that, and it's the trap tile from this. I mean, same thing goes even like you were talking like your prefab stuff. Your Dwarven Forge or Warlock, which I'm not even start talking about Warlock. There's you're gonna get the sameness, I guess. And if you can just have the sameness, just do a really nice set of XPS base files, or print that. Gosh, what was it? The Kraken ones. Those are fantastic.
Oh, the Kraken tiles look so good. I
Really,
still
really
have so
good.
many of those
Yeah.
Kraken tiles. And then there was like that one sci-fi set for the planets that they released that
Hmm.
was a similar thing. So the 8 by 8 sheets that you put down, but also they did the smart thing that Terrainify didn't do, where all of those really cool things were also available without the base plate. So they could just
Hmm.
be a free floating piece that you set on your board.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And then like that's not even talking about like our wonderful creators like Ian Lovecraft that we've like shouted love letters to over the years.
Yeah, yeah. And then like even Blast Down Fudge here does alien terrain. So like
Yeah.
there's so many cool things. Obviously there was a Kickstarter we shouted out to last week with this STL miniatures, I think. STL miniatures. But anywho, the way you can get from Greeblies and the terrain sheets and everything. There's so many options here, and it's amazing.
Yeah. And a lot of these are available if you just have like a mid-range Saturn printer. You could print the Greeblies and the small stuff to like make your traditional stuff. You can print the texture rollers and the templates and the add-ons. And if you've got access to like a large format FDM printer, that's when you start printing the mountains and the tiles and the buildings.
I just think it's funny because now it's true. You said mid-range Saturn printer, and I'm like, I remember when it was a big one.
I know, I know.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know
And
what? Large format resin printing still hasn't, like, there's only like 3 printers on the market that would qualify, and
right.
2 of them aren't worth owning.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I'm still not that excited by the Jupiter. Like honestly, I think a Saturn 3 or 4 or whatever,
Mhm.
that generation is probably where I'm going next. I'll skip one or two probably, right? But like they're the workhorses that I need. They make up to like a gargantuan thing. And like that's without I can print a gargantuan mini like pre-assembled, right? So like anything there that's going to do what I want. And if for train pieces, what you call it, cast and play with the segmented walls and stuff to augment these boards and things like that, like
Guess
those were
what
so
good
good.
news I have?
Is this the good news you teased me
Yes,
about?
Cast and Play just announced Printable Interiors 2 has the walls. They're
I,
doing a full on that wonderful terrain we geeked and loved so much about. Then we were like, oh, they stopped
mm,
making it for
mm,
their thing. Well, they're
mm-hmm.
doing a whole new campaign with a dozen more sets,
I both love and hate you for mentioning this so much because that stuff is so good. It's so
and they're
good.
showing off a sewer set as the first set. The
Oh,
thing they really
mm.
needed from that first set.
Right, right. Well,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you got options like Archon's second
Mm-hmm.
Dungeons Laser set had a fantastic sewer, really
Oh yeah,
affordable,
Dungeons and
really for.
Lasers
I
has been
actually
so
that was
good.
the first time I got one early. It wasn't because like it was a influencing thing. It was just I actually won a drawing because I made a joke about gelatinous cubes in the sewer or something like that. And people thought it was funny, and they were like, "You get this preview," and that set is fire. So, anywho, um, but yeah, that's exciting that they've got. Geez, they have a sewer. Have you seen any other themes?
Um, no, they just showed off the sewer,
Just shut
but
off the
like with a
sewers.
lot. So they showed off
But
a
they
bunch of the
said
sewer
12.
walls. I don't know how many they said, but there was
Okay.
12 last time.
Hey, you got me excited. It's one of my favorite projects. And like
Yeah.
honestly, after because if people don't know, they released their last one and then they started doing them in their monthlies for a while. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be additive, and we're going to get this whole big interlocking thing with the same, joining pieces. It's very simple if you haven't seen them. It's a peg and a hook, and you can use it to do. I think it's got a hex peg, so you can do angular or right, and there are just so many options for the configuration of those walls. Honestly, I even dremeled them out sometimes so that the hook, that goes over the peg could just spin.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that if I could even get more out of it, because their cave set had curves, and so you could get some really good organic looking caves. You're doing a
Yeah,
face. What's your
I
face?
love it. No, that's the Otis
Oh, okay.
Mania face.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I was like, please tell me you got more info. Did you just say another thing? But you know. You just
No.
reacted to the fact because and again, for a resin terrain project, that is plenty big, and because you can just stack those up, you do the 6-inch wall segments or the 3-inch wall segments, you stack them up on your Saturn. I was getting 2 rows of each on my Saturn easy, and that's almost a box of Dwarven Forge once you throw some sort of basing under it. Like it was wild.
Yeah.
Wild the and you hollow them because that's actually the smart thing to do, and drain them well, people.
Yeah. Flush
I say
some.
this, yes, I say this. I water cured them towards the end because I didn't the first couple times, and their cave set was awesome, but it was flanged at the base, so I didn't do my drain holes right, and I did actually have my first mid-session poison ooze
Oh
feature.
no!
So yeah, fortunately, I noticed it before anybody else did, and I had a plexiglass thing down because it was kind of a print and roll. Ooh, okay, okay. Got a dungeony thing and a sewery thing. I like it, like it, like it.
Hmm.
So good.
And they have a. Let's see if I can open this image up and like they have a painted example, and it looks, oh my goodness, glorious.
Yeah.
Mhm. So you had an ooze situation, right? Hold on, let me
Hmm.
shift to.
Hmm. Yes, I had an ooze situation.
Mhm.
Um, it was only 2 of the pieces, but like the drain holes in that segment were not done well, and so the flange on the outside, because these things are designed very nice, and they'll have oftentimes like a little bit of a support element at the base between their hooks and stuff,
Mhm.
and the support elements didn't drain out, so
Ooh.
they had a pool of resin in them, and 2 of those pieces cracked and just began to ooze out. But fortunately, I had the plexiglass down because I do a lot of
Ooh.
maps underneath it, So it was just like, a little alcohol, took those out, sun cured them. I think I actually cracked the bottom of one of them, but um, and then I put the rest of them like out because I was like, the chances are there's more soup in some of these. If that happened, 2 times, there's probably more. And went through and just ended up printing another set because no one wants danger drips that are real in your dungeon test. I mean, I don't want my players making fort saves or a constitution save. Whatever the
just
mechanic.
The characters.
Yeah, just the characters, please. Please don't get, resin in my, brand new player's eye or something. Let's not do that.
Yeah. And one of the ways you can do that, besides rinsing them out really well with IPA, shoving a little LED, a UV LED up in there is another option. And of course, water curing. Water curing reflects the light through the water and helps take care of that.
But I'm going to add, please make your drain holes big enough that the water curing is going to get inside them any decently.
And several drain holes, like lots of drain holes is good.
Yeah. At the point I was using them in this sort of project, I was like, for the base, it was probably about 1 every inch minimum. So, and that seemed to work a lot better.
For sure. And I kind of ran out of, like, I could actually keep going on topic like this for ages and ages and just nerding out about it. But we're running out on time.
We are running out on time.
You have any cool shout outs you want to give this week?
No. However, if you have an LGS you love and want to recommend it to me for my walkabout here coming up, I am still gathering that information. If you want to go to my TikTok, 7th Mastery on, Mr. TikTok / TikTok / 7th Mastery. I saw something in the chat that I was starting to read as I was talking. But yes, maybe we'll put in the show notes because I can't clearly talk right now. Please, I have a pinned post that I am gathering information for that visit, and especially if you have 3D printed elements or a 3D printed friendly store, I would love to feature them. If you have a goo friendly store or a line friendly store or a filament friendly store, I want to hear about it because I think hybrid gaming deserves to be celebrated, and I want to talk that up. And I'm going to be doing as much TikTok exposure as they want. I have a decently sized audience, so your mileage may vary, but please, if you have any information about your favorite LGSs and Magic stores, let's be honest, I'm going to play Magic the Gathering some around there too. So please give me that info.
All right. Well, with that, if you want to help the show out at all, the best way you can do that is leave us a review on Spotify or iTunes. You can also find more of what we're doing over at printyourgames.com, where we have 113 back episodes that you can listen to if you've missed any. And until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perram.
I'm Kristen Sowards, also known as 7th Mastery, and don't forget to use your screen protector.